Hello there, my name is Thomas and welcome to the latest episode of British Culture Albi Never Dies. It's back in Britain. Nine already. We're at 9. I've been here for a little bit, just a few months. I arrived, I guess, late March, back in the UK after living abroad for 7 years, and I hadn't visited for 3 or 4 years. So I just thought I'd make this series just to track my return, because often I've gone to other countries. I lived in Turkish Cyprus for 7 years, I lived in China for 6 years, I've worked in Saudi Arabia, I've worked in Oman, and I've visited so many times, and I'm just used to rolling around the globe that I thought I'd track my own kind of reactions coming back to the UK. A friend of mine, an American, was asking me actually earlier today. He just sent me a message, hey, how are you adapting? He was finding it difficult because he spent so much of his life in East Asia, returned to the US, and he's finding it difficult to adjust. For myself, I seem to have escaped, but then again, I've been pretty busy. So the first episode, Back in Britain 1, I was just talking about coming back. Episode 2, I was meeting up with some friends. It was kind of a pub chat. And then 3, I had a job already by the 3rd episode, because I came back to the UK without a job, just kind of on a prayer, rarely, that I'd find something. I did have a friend recommending me for jobs, but, even so, somebody sending you helpful links, looking around by yourself as well, of course. But it worked out. I interviewed for a job, I got the job relatively quickly, which was a big relief, almost celebratory. I was able to go down to London to meet Pete Brooker from Tailors of Love, Daniel Gaster, Z from Town of the Day, and British Bond addict Chris, and that was fantastic. That was a great day out. Episode 5, Back in Britain 5, I talked about the UK and the US and some differences. I'd spent quite a few months in California. I had initially thought maybe I'd settle there, but too many problems with the visa. Already the big problem that I put in all the stuff I should do and I'm still waiting for some kind of answer. Married to an American, speak some languages, got a couple of degrees, a couple of postgraduate diplomas, lots of experience, and nope, they're still thinking about it after all this time. So I did a UK versus US episode, and then I did a couple more slice of life episodes, including the Queen's Golden Jubilee. So now what am I doing? Well, I've got the job. My wife has come to join me soon, and of course that means I need to move out of my friend's front room, find a place for all of myself, so that we don't take over his house as a family. So I'm searching for homes, and there was a housing shortage even a few years ago, and then over the last 2 years, people haven't been building new homes, so there's a real shortage, and I've had a crazy time, and sometimes I've mentioned that one place was really terrible, and you had to kind of fix it up whilst you were renting. I mean, if it was free rent I was fixing up, maybe, and if it was your own home to fix up whilst you're there, okay, but paying rent to fix up somebody else's property is outrageous. And there was another place I could rent it for 6 months, completely unfurnished, furnish it, show people around because they really want to sell it. So you're literally trying to sell this place that you're renting, which means that you'll be moving on. You'll be kicked out of the place if you're successful. So there have been so many crazy little rules, but there you go. Right now it's the landlord's market, not the renters, and I'm just looking for a little flat to rent in this little village where my company is. So yeah, working on that in earnest. So that means I haven't done my usual round of interesting and exciting things, or going out to little villages and going to things like the Howarth 1940s weekend. I haven't been doing too much of that, but I did get out and see the special screening of 1977's The Spy Who Loved Me. So lots of UK cinemas are showing the classic Bond films right now. I guess we're coming up to the 60th anniversary of Dr. No being released, and so the cinemas are showing kind of one old Bond film a week, slowly building up to that. Of course, The Spy Who Loved Me was the 3rd Bond film with Roger Moore, and it was his favourite, and it was really interesting to watch it because it was the first Bond film where they'd really completely run out of Fleming material. I mean, they diverted from it, they changed it. You Only Live Twice, for example, has very little to do with the book. They had cherry-picked a few ideas, names, locations, and so on. and didn't share much of the DNA of the book. In fact, I'd say the latest Bond film was much more in common with the book than the film that shares the same name. But The Spy Who Loved Me, they really did, I don't know, start anew, and I think it works wonderfully. But this film was the one that really made the case for a purely cinematic Bond, rather than just adaptations or loose adaptations or inspired by. It was a fresh start. And interestingly, a friend of mine, possibly influenced by me, went through all the old Bond films, and he detected, even not knowing much about the series, not having read the books, he said, this is where it felt like they didn't have source material, because it was just written like a big, spectacular film. So I'm really glad I was able to see it on the big screen. It felt very cinematic, and it's a film I'd only previously seen on, Saturday afternoon TV, or, eventually got the DVDs and stuff, so it was really cool just to see it on a big screen. Most interesting to me was the fact that whilst there weren't a huge number of people going, it was a big range of ages. So for example, a couple of young lads going along who, I'm kind of surprised, because there's been a lot of talk in the Bond community about how lots of people get into Bond because they watched it with their dads. I watched it with my family, and these days, with the Daniel Craig films, you're not going to show that to children. The Roger Moore films you can grow up on as a child, but you're not going to grow up on the Daniel Craig films, I think. I think they're a bit too dark, brooding and adult. So lots of people have questioned whether there'd be like a missing generation if basically we're aging out of Bond. And there's been no video games or anything like that, because, it's been, I think, a decade in which the video game industry has been outstripping the film industry in terms of, revenue. And I think a lot of the really bright creative people are going into video games and video game writing instead of movies, because it's where you can now tell a story, and a big cinematic story that can break new ground and have an impact. It's no longer Mario. You get these really interesting stories on the latest consoles. So I think films are really losing out to gaming platforms. So it's interesting, no new games, when there has been a whole generation brought into Bond through the N64. Anyway, I find it so interesting to see that there was an age range, to this movie, and it was perfect for the big screen. It was really cool to see it. Great soundtrack, great visuals. Even now, I don't know. Especially, I have to say it, some of those stunts were amazing, especially, it's not CGI, they can't have wires digitally painted out, it all has to be done for real, that opening ski chase, with Olympic skiers and so on. It looks fantastic. Anyway, that was one of my joys this week. The other, another big event at Bradford Cathedral, which was installing a new dean. The dean of a cathedral is, the ecumenical boss. And Bradford's a really interesting one. It was a parish church before. It's the church, there has been a Christian worship there for over 1,000 years. And like many of these old churches, it's been built up. And it became a cathedral, I think in the 20th century, but retained its status as a parish church. So the Dean of Bradford is also the vicar, the incumbent of the parish. So it's a really interesting kind of service and ceremony, and it's a city occasion. So it's not just the Church of England congregation that go along. It's also representatives of the mayor. It's the Lord Lieutenant, who is he's the Queen's representative here in West Yorkshire. When the Queen comes here, he arranges her schedule, he hosts, and he can stand, come into public events in place of the Queen. He had members of other faith communities, so he had representatives from the Jewish community and from the Muslim community. So as I say, it's a really big city occasion. And I think there's 3 parts to it. First of all, the Dean gets licensed. He then gets inducted by the Archdeacon, so he has the authority to exercise the necessary legal responsibilities, and then he's installed. He's put into the stall, the special seat where the Dean sits, so you always know where to find him. So during the services he sits in, and some of this is beautiful, the kind of woodwork. It's Tudor woodwork, dating back 500 years. It's beautiful carvings, and you can check out Bradford Cathedral's Instagram page and their YouTube and so on. It is a beautiful cathedral that's been kind of built over time, and it was a fantastic service, a big celebration, like I said, big city celebration with choirs and people contributing to the music from from all over the country, actually. One of the choirs came all the way from Bath, as well as the Bradford Cathedral and the Dean of Ripon and so on. So, as I say, it's a big ecclesiastical event, and the cathedral was absolutely packed. So yeah, those were my 2 big events. Just a busy little weekend, and the rest I've just been hunting for homes. I don't have any crazy stories about that because, well, I'm just checking the app Rightmove a huge amount, and Zoopla, and there's a couple of other apps as well, smaller ones. Just keep checking them because, I've even wandered into estate agents and tried to talk to them face to face the old-fashioned way, but they're like, we're too busy, please just check the app. As soon as something comes up, it's on the app, and they're just too busy looking around and showing people around. Then again, a friend of mine was volunteering at a charity shop, so I just popped down just to see him, have a coffee, and the ladies there were like telling me about this tiny little agency that I'd never heard of, hadn't really found online in any of my searches. They told me, gave me a phone number, rang. The lady was really helpful, just didn't have anything. Like I said, it's a crazy market right now. So looking around a few places this week, fingers crossed I can find something. And as I say, short podcast this week because it's really been a hectic week in terms of looking for places to live, but not much to talk about in terms of British culture. I'm looking forward to being settled in a place, spending a bit of time on my research. A few people have said, you don't need to spend so much time on research, just give your own personal views from your own experience. But you know what? I enjoy the research. It's a big part of what I do. I really enjoy it. I work for an academic publishing company, and one of the benefits of the job is I get my hands on all this academic research. I love it. Anyway, as I say, I'm looking forward to being settled. This feels like the final furlong. If I can just make this hurdle, then finally I can settle in, and I might come back to these Back in Britain series. There's definitely another episode coming, hopefully an episode coming soon, saying I've moved in. After that, I can get into some of those deep dives again, maybe a couple of interviews. I've got a few people who say they're willing, but I just don't have the time. But I'm really looking forward, I say, just to being settled. So yeah, it's Back in Britain 9. I hope you enjoyed that very, very quick chat. And I'll check in next week and I'll tell you how it went. Thank you very much for listening. See you later.